Okay, so we've been talking all morning about Xbox and various things with them and their business practices. But basically the recap for all of that is just Xbox is primed to print money and to dominate the industry if they can solve one little problem. And that little problem is, how on earth do you have close, at this point probably close to $100 billion worth of studios under your belt, and yet they can't seemingly figure out how to consistently release quality games? It's amazing. And I mean, it makes you really appreciate like PlayStation, who is able to pretty consistently from a series of studios drop Game of the Year contenders. Like, we all kind of know whenever Naughty Dog drops their next game, it's probably a Game of the Year contender. Whenever Santa Monica Studio drops their next game, it's probably Game of the Year contender. We just understand this, right? And Xbox owns so many amazing studios, very talented devs, and amazing IP as well, that surely they could pull this off if they could just figure it out. But they still struggle. Even to this day, they'll have something huge like the Fallout TV show, and they seemingly have nothing planned for it except for a next-gen update that's 4 years too late for Fallout 4 that happens to break the game for a lot of people. So it's just shocking. But this brought up a topic of a game that just recently saw its 1-year anniversary. And it's a game that has still not delivered on its $100 premium edition that people bought and are still waiting for new fulfillments on. And that is, of course, Redfall. Now, Redfall, as you can see, the anniversary comes and goes as those who bought the $100 edition still wait for promised DLC. Real quick, can you buy Redfall on Steam? What's Redfall's player count at? 45 players are in game right now. Watch out, Suicide Squad. We got another player in town. Oh, baby. So I'm kind of surprised it's even this high, but there's that. So a year after launch, they are in the double digits for player counts, which is quite amazing. But they still owe people fulfillments on these premium editions, which, bear in mind, they still sell. And bear in mind, what does this include? It includes the base game, an Engineer Remy outfit, Northern Expedition, Divine whatever outfit, War Clothes Layla outfit, Ice in the Dark Jacob outfit, Laser Beam multi-weapon skin, Tactical Knife stake weapon attachment, Redfall Hero Pass, which will allow you to play as 2 future heroes. 2 future heroes. Now, to this day, there's been almost nothing done with the game. Like, almost nothing. It's been all this time and there's been effectively no improvements made. No mention came from developer Arcane Bethesda or larger Xbox owner. However, leaving November 2023's patch notes as the last communication on this missing content. Quote, "We're continuing development of the Hero Pass and we're excited to share more about Redfall's new heroes and other updates later next year," Arcane said at the time. IGN has reached out to them for comment. As you can see, Creator Divinity on Reddit posted a happy birthday message. This is half shitpost because it doesn't seem Bethesda or Arcane or Microsoft have made mention of this milestone anywhere. Last social post was a month ago. Last site update was 6 months ago. Clearly, Microsoft and Bethesda and Pete and Phil really still believe in the future of this title or something. I don't know. I'm just sad because while it has improved, I'm waiting for them to announce what the future is for the game before I even consider picking it up. I've been hopeful they'd really deliver banger updates because this game still has a fantastic premise. And then the comments, the concept of this game was so cool, such a shame. The execution was cataclysmically terrible. Was it that cool though? I mean, when I look at the stats, it always gets skewed with Game Pass titles because most people that were playing Redfall were playing on Game Pass. They weren't playing on Steam. So this isn't super indicative of what the real true player count is. So honestly, like when you factor in Game Pass, this number could easily be well above, 200, 300, 400 people, which would put it even above where like Suicide Squad is at. But when I see like this peak I just think people just weren't interested. I don't think that, and granted, it got some very negative press leading up to its launch, but I just genuinely don't think people were that interested in the premise. Yeah, my wife was super pumped and wanted to do a gaming week when it came out. I took time off work, ate super healthy the week leading up to release to make up for the snacks and junk food, and we only played it maybe 5 hours the first day. Awkward. You're gonna have to talk to each other or something. That's crazy. The buyback edition still has been honored after a year. I know I'm in the minority, but I really enjoy this game a lot. I played on Series X, and it's been so nice to play at 60 FPS with FOV options set at 120. It's way too rare for a game on next-gen console to give you a higher frame rate with FOV options, so I'm grateful when it's there. And for me, it's the difference between playing the game or not playing. Love the vibe of this game. Really hope they continue with it. Yeah, man, WTF. I thought they would put out like a nice update with heroes or something. It's amazing they haven't done any of that. They issued the FOV update and the frame rate update, but that's like the only thing of note that they've done as far as I am aware. I've been low-key huffing that copium that they've been so quiet because they've been working on a huge update for the game that they would reveal on the 1-year anniversary, even if it came in phases and stuff. The total silence just feels like either Bethesda or Arcane forgot, or things are worse than we thought. I'm absolutely not huffing more copium, and they just weren't ready for the big update. There is probably never going to be a big update. It really is shocking. It's ridiculous that we're this far in, because when he referenced Pete in that comment where he was like, oh, Pete and Phil are, what are they doing? Pete Hines has since retired, is my understanding, but he stepped away, and but before he did that, he said Bethesda Softworks publisher head Pete Hines reassured people that Arcane wasn't giving up on Redfall. He spoke to gamesindustry.biz, said, quote, "We are the same company that has had launches that didn't go the way we wanted, and we don't quit or abandon stuff just because it didn't start right," he said. The Elder Scrolls Online PC launch was not flawless, but we stuck with it. Now it's like this insanely popular multi-platform. It's the same with Fallout 76. Redfall is no different for us. Okay, we didn't get the start we wanted, but it's still a fun game, and we're going to keep working on it. We're going to do 60 FPS, which my understanding is they did. We're going to get it to be a good game because we know as a first-party studio, Game Pass lives forever. There will be people 10 years from now who are going to join Game Pass, and Redfall will be there. Earlier this year, Bethesda promised that the 30 FPS capped Redfall would receive an update at a later time with the 60 FPS performance mode added. In June, it got its first major patch that included gameplay, AI, UI, multiplayer, combat, and other incremental improvements, but was still missing the 60 FPS upgrade. No word on that yet when that will be live. Did they not add it? I thought that other guy just said they did. Yeah, I think they did. Yeah, 6 months ago. Yeah, I was like, I could have sworn we did a video on it too on the main channel. So they did add 60 FPS. They figured that out. So that's key. That's key. Yeah, Redfall update game has only received 3 post-launch updates. Last one was in June. It maxes out at 30 concurrents on Steam. Players still desperate for promised 60 FPS mode. Bethesda says it hasn't abandoned it. Fans hoping for a spooky surprise in October. Yeah, and they've just, it seems like it's a skeleton crew that's working on the game, which is why it's taking so long to get anything done. But again, they're supposed to have 2 playable characters added to the game. Like, this was supposed to be monetized very similarly to Suicide Squad, where they were doing these like seasonal updates where you get a new playable character and new missions and all sorts of new content. It's just shocking that not only did they not seemingly have anything prepared, but a year after launch, they don't have anything. Like, they got 60 FPS and that's about it a year later. Like, what was going to happen if this game had gotten a pretty good reception, if people had played a lot of it? Like, what what would have happened? It's crazy. I guess Microsoft can't afford to keep this game alive for some reason. But is it even really alive? Like, it's gotten a 60 FPS update. They haven't honored like the extra DLC stuff. And maybe they do drop in like the summer. Maybe we get like a trailer in June for a big like update for Redfall, and it's a total reworking, and they're like, yeah, and we're rebalancing everything. New playable characters are going to be available, and new missions, all sorts of stuff. Maybe they do that. I hope that's what they do. They got to do something yesterday. I would argue it's already too late, because people are already kind of forgetting that this game exists. But Pete Hines, before he left, insisted that they were not giving up on it. But maybe Pete Hines was one of the like few people that actually was gonna fight for it. Yeah, 7 months ago, Pete Hines, Senior Vice President, Head of Publishing for Bethesda Softworks, has announced his decision to retire. So he was presumably one of the last people that was really fighting for Redfall to get carried across the finish line, and he's not there anymore. So maybe the hopes for the game's future left with him. Yeah, rip Pete Hines. Retire in peace, Pete Hines. Yeah, it really sucks because the anniversary was the perfect time to release something, like anything. Literally anything. If they could have done a community post and just said, hey guys, we have some really exciting stuff to show you in June. They could have said anything, and they didn't. They honestly probably didn't acknowledge it because they know all the comments in response would be something, game's been out a year with next to no updates, something, game sucks, can't believe it's been this long, and the buyback stuff still isn't here, something, dark side, something, complete. Lol. And I'm not saying complaints aren't valid, just saying they likely didn't make a post about it because the response would just be them getting shit on about it while bringing attention to the fact that years passed and we still are here. New DLC confirmed. Oh, new build called DLC 1 on SteamDB. So I'm thinking about 2 DLC, 1 for each character with some new gear and maybe some other stuff, new enemies, perks, events. And then the mod says it's not new. It's been there since launch. It gets updated periodically, though. Well, they say they're doing it. I do think that they do drop something, because I think if they were going to dump it, they would just dump it. And they have done intermittent updates, but it really seems like it's a skeleton crew. I don't know if it's like a dozen people working on it or something, but it's pretty clear if they planned on having like 100 people working on this game or 200 people working on it when it launched, and they're like, yeah, when it's successful, we'll get, 200-300 people working on it. It'll be great. And then when it was just a disaster, they probably pulled everybody off of it. Microsoft's too busy making PlayStation ports. Well, I'll tell you what, those PlayStation ports have made a hell of a lot more money than Redfall ever did. It's gone from a 3 out of 10 to a solid 5 out of 10. That's the problem, is like when you start so low, any number of major improvements are just like, okay, well, it still sucks. It still is something you shouldn't buy, but it's better. And that's where you're at with a lot of these games that you go back and revisit. Like I was hoping that they'd fix it, but it went from horrible to less horrible, or just now it's not horrible, it's just pretty bad. It's like, that's still not worth playing. The thing with video games is, like, if the core is rotten, there's not much you can do to save it. Like, if there's one bad egg in the omelet just needs to be thrown out. It just doesn't work anymore. And you can do some patches, you can try to do stuff like that, but it's really, really tough to save something that started really rotten. It can happen. I would say No Man's Sky, is an example of them digging that thing out of a bit of a trench. But even No Man's Sky was a concept people were stoked about. People were thrilled at the idea of that game, just the very concept of it. But like with Redfall, I don't think the hype was anywhere near that level, In a weird way, people were still rooting for No Man's Sky. I don't think anybody's really rooting for Redfall. I think people just don't care. And the worst thing for a live service game is for people to just not care. At least if you care, you're going to go back in and try it. You might go back in with your friends and check in every once in a while. At least you're playing it. You're going to give it a chance. With games like Suicide Squad and Redfall, people just they just genuinely don't care. And for those people and for those games, there's just nothing you can really do. He took my thing.